and expect it. It's kind of like growth. You have to expect to be uncomfortable. And sometimes we get comfortable in our reactivity, but the uncomfortableness is when you can stop and just choose another way.
Welcome to Love Stories, a relationship podcast for successful women, where we talk about love, dating, relationships, and how great love stories are made. Whether you're searching for the one, you're madly in love, or simply curious about romantic relationships, this podcast is for you. I'm Charlene Byars. Each week, you'll hear from women, couples, and experts, and all the ins and outs on how to create your own love story. I am so passionate about this subject, and I'm so excited to share all the things that you can apply to create a beautiful love story of your own. Cheers to great love. Welcome back to Love Stories Podcast. I'm your host, Charlene Byars. I want to talk to you about polarity and how polarity creates that kind of dynamic that generates the attraction, intimacy, and passion in romantic relationships. Polarity is so vital in romantic relationships because it keeps it alive and passionate. The concept of polarity in relationship is based on that the masculine and the feminine energies are complementary and work together to create balance, harmony, and passion. Wow, it's important to note that gender doesn't determine which energy a person has. But traditionally, men have been associated with the masculine energy and women with the feminine energies. The difference between these two energies are distinct. And as a relationship coach who specializes in helping single women find their soul-aligned best friend, masculine lover, I'm passionate about the power of the feminine energy and its role in creating a lasting, thriving, and passionate relationship. And if you would like to learn more about polarity, I have a free ebook called The Magnetic Woman. And this will explain in detail polarity and feminine and masculine energies and how that's the actual magic ingredient in successful relationships and how to attract great men. So we will leave the link here in the show notes so you can get immediate access. Let's talk about the tip of the week, which is find your connection spots, meaning do the things that you love and be open to meeting someone who shares your vibe. For an example, if you love rock climbing, then join a rock climbing group. It's about getting out of the house on a weekly basis and creating proximity and creating those opportunities. So don't stop doing the things that you already love doing and stay open to meeting a potential suitor. Let me tell you about our next guest. I'm so excited to introduce my guest today. Karen McCoy is a successful fitness and wellness coach for women over the age of 40. She has been teaching for 30 years with her all-in-one program that encompasses fitness and nutrition, as well as emotional, spiritual health, and wellness. Karen is a former longtime fitness and bodybuilding competitor, which she did from her 20s to her 50s. And she's also been married for 25 years. And her husband care for Karen's special needs son. Karen has an amazing love story, and I'm so excited to share that with us today. One of the things that really stood out with me about Karen is her perseverance and grit. Because even though Karen grew up not being close to her dad and finding out at the age of 12 that her dad had a whole other family, and she didn't trust men and had a string of bad boy after bad boy. But she was able to turn it all around. And even though the biggest challenge she faced with her special needs son and his diagnosis and the toll that took on her marriage, they were able to stick it through, grow, get the help they needed, and now have a marriage that she's so proud of. What an extraordinary love story. With no further ado, Karen McCoy.
Well, hello, Miss Karen McCoy. I'm so happy you're
here, Mom. I've been dying to talk to you. And if anybody, so just to give everyone a little heads up. So I've known Karen for a few years now. Karen's actually a friend of mine who lives in Canada. We've never actually met in person, but we've been in each other's worlds. And I'm such a girl fan of Miss Karen today, and we're going to learn so much about her. But today she's going to be able to really show her, like, tell us her story, tell her all the things that she's been with, because I'm seriously, that this lady is a badass. And I'm so happy to have her on today. So hello, Miss Karen. How are you?
Hello, Mamacita. Thank you for having me. This is so great. And if this is how we connect, I'm happy. I haven't seen you in a while, so this is great.
Thank you, Mama. Well, I wanted to just say, when we were thinking of this show, we've been trying to get this show going for a while now. And I thought about like the type of guests that I wanted on the show. And I really wanted to have women that actually have been through some stuff in their life and have also been able to find success, and also not only just success, also be able to find and have this incredible love story. And I'm going to tell you something. You were probably one of the first ladies that I thought. I remember when I had my little wish list of the women that I wanted to interview and bring on, Miss Karen, you came on. So Miss Karen, now, no pressure, baby, no pressure. Okay, so let's just go from here.
No.
So let's start from here. I know you're married now, and we're here to talk about that, and you're married and all that. But I want you to take me further back. I want you to take me further back, even further back from your first husband, because you had your first husband, then you had your second husband. What was life for you back before that first husband, and what was life for you when it came into dating men? Like, what was that like? I want to hear this, because this is the part I never know about you.
Oh,
talk to me.
Bad choices, Mama. Bad choices.
Let's hear it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So came from a small town, moved out west to the Rocky Mountains when I was 18. After high school, I had to get away from my domineering father, fell into the party life a little bit, and then fell into athletics, which, as you know, I'm big into athletics and sports and stuff like that. Yeah. And honestly, I was just a fly by the seat of your pants kind of girl. Like, I really was just having fun, but my boyfriend choices were not healthy. And I think, and again, I aspire to you to maybe define this, but what I've heard, what kind of sinks in for me, is you choose your mates at the level of your self-esteem. And I didn't have a lot of self-esteem. I looked like I did. I was doing all the right things, saying all the right stuff, wearing all the right clothes, had the perfect skis, had all that stuff. But I really didn't have a strong sense of myself. I had a sheltered childhood, right? And a very domineering father. So I was always like, wanting to push away and not have my freedom taken away. But ironically, I chose bad boyfriends who certainly were not good for me, and they kind of just enveloped me. So I did lose myself probably for the first 10 years of dating. Like, seriously, I didn't know who I was. Yeah. And I didn't think I fell into my mother's roles of, you're defined by who you're with, but unconsciously I did. It's really weird. Yeah. And I look at it now and went, oh my gosh, I became my mother. No.
Mama, but listen. But you know what? But the reality is that what else are what's going to happen to us as women? Like, you only know what you know, and you only learn what you learn. And until you get out, and until you have this opportunity to, have trial and errors, have these bad, relationships and stuff, then you kind of see, oh, shoot. Like, oh my gosh, this is not working. Like, what is going on with me? And that makes a lot of sense to me, based just that you just said you had not the best relationship with your father. So what were you expecting? You know what I mean? That's, to me, makes a lot of sense to me, that if you didn't have this great relationship with your father, and you really didn't see, this healthy relationship, you probably already thought, okay, well, this is how it is. This is how men are. I mean, I'm just, that's what I would figure that would happen. That's usually what happens. What was it for you?
Yeah. And I think, so I think the piece that I should probably go back to even more so one of the reasons why I had an unhealthy relationship, and I actually never wanted to get married. Although I pined, no, although I pined for affection and to be cared for, my father had two different families, two different lives.
Shut the door. Are you serious?
Yeah, seriously.
When did you find that out?
So my dad wasn't around from when I was like 5 till about 12. And we were told he was at the office working. And what he was doing was, I mean, years ago, it was pilots in other countries that had other families. Well, my dad was only half an hour away. We didn't know that. And he built another house, had another wife, had a child. And it wasn't all of that. And so it wasn't until I was 12 when the poop hit the fan. And he decided to out his secret. And we then had to go meet, because all of a sudden he wanted to play dad, and he wanted to have his 3 children living with him and let mom go off somewhere else. So we went to this house that he and his wife and child built. And I'm walking around the house, and I remember this, Charlene, and you know how you get that hit in your body? Like we're always talking through empowerment coaching, feeling it in your body. I'm walking through the house, and I'm seeing all the same gifts that he gave me in this other child's bedroom. And because he traveled, I was 12. And I remember, I don't know if I said it out loud, but I said, I'm not special. I'm not special.
So subconscious.
And it was when I realized.
Let's stay there for just a second. So there was a moment then, knowing that your whole life, because at 12 years old, you already had your whole 12 years, you're like this, you only know what you know at 12 years old, right? Thinking a certain thing.
It was a
lie. And now you are going to your father's new house with his new family. And for the very first time, is your mother there with you too? No. So it's just you.
No, she knew about it. She stayed home.
She stayed home. So she knew that you were going to go meet the other family. Did you have any siblings?
Yeah. 2 siblings came with me.
And what did you have? Brothers or sisters?
I have 2 siblings. I have an older sister, a younger brother, and then my other half brother that was new was 6 weeks older than my brother.
At the time. Okay. So you're going to walk in this house.
Charlene, they were both named the same.
And they named you guys the same.
Yeah, they named my brothers the same.
They named the boys the same. So your brother's also going through. So all 3 of you are going through like, what is going on here? Okay, but you specifically, there was something about that moment for you that you can feel the change, like something like you can, obviously at the time you can articulate it, right? But now, fast forward as an adult woman, you can look back and say, oh my gosh, something happened then. Okay, go. I want to hear this.
Yeah. And so I think that's probably why I had a lot of poor choices in my boyfriends, because I wasn't really serious about wanting to get into anything because, number one, I felt like my whole life was a lie and I couldn't trust what I thought I knew. But the other thing was I didn't have a healthy parent marriage to be able to be mirrored to me. My dad would come home and kind of peck my mother on the cheek. They were separate a lot, and then he wouldn't come home for months. So I didn't have any understanding of how to create a healthy relationship where there's intimacy and eating dinner together. My dad came home one night a week to eat dinner together. And so carried that into the boys. And so I chose men who were emotionally stunted, but fun. Like they were fun because I wanted to have fun because I had such heavy stuff in my childhood. Well, the fun ended up being stupid stuff, and I wasn't happy. And I honestly didn't meet my first husband till I was 29. And I was 29. Yeah. I still didn't want to get married, but yeah, I was 29.
Okay. So you're going through this process, and you know what? Thank you for sharing this, because Karen, seriously, this is so relatable to so many women. A lot of us, we carry on this shame and this stuff on us, and it has a lot to do with our childhood, and it's not our fault. Like, it's literally not our fault. And we don't learn this stuff. We don't know this stuff. And we end up going and we make all these bad choices, and we're just feeling like, what is going on? It really affects us. And I want everyone to hear that right now. You're not alone. Like, it really affects that. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just the environment that you were in and what you saw is what you saw and is what you believed. What else are you going to believe? Seriously, what else are you going to believe? Okay, so mama, so you're fast forward. So let's go here. So mama's fast forwarding. She's a single lady. And in between this, I wanted to say something to you because I know a little bit about this, about your story. So you're a single lady, you're going fast forward, but also in between that, before you met your husband, is this when the whole fitness thing for you happened? Is this when you got into fitness, or did you think you got into fitness later with the guy when you were 29? How old were you?
No, I got into fitness at 21 with my first boyfriend. And so I think fitness, I was living in Banff, Alberta. Everybody's an athlete. All the best athletes, in Canada, many come from Alberta. So I think for me, it was something unique and different. Women weren't doing weight training in 1981. And I came from a very conservative, traditional family. And I was so much trying to find my own identity that I chose kind of the rebellious route of going into bodybuilding, which was very rare.
Oh, so, okay, okay. So the bodybuilding and how you started was actually more based on like, I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to go against what they say. I know it ended up being like amazing in your journey. And this is what you do for a living now. And, you live it, breathe it, the whole thing. But it started differently. It started because you're like, hell no. You know what? I'll do my own thing. Oh, this is fascinating. Okay, got it. Okay, so now mama's in the bodybuilding. Now she's, really shaping her body, doing the things. Were you competing in your 20s? Is this when that happened?
My first show was 29. So that was just after I met my first boyfriend, which became my first husband.
So
yes.
Let's talk about that. So you are 29 years old and you already you never really had like a long-term relationship over, like you have not a serious relationship. You're just kind of doing your thing. You're kind of like, you like the bad boys, but you're kind of a bad girl too. And, which is okay, and you're doing your thing. And then what was it? What happened with this guy? How'd you meet him? I want to hear this. How'd you meet your first husband?
Met him at the gym, of course.
Met him at the gym. And how did he present in the beginning, Mama? What was the difference between this guy?
Well, unlike my other boyfriends, he had a car and he had a job. So I had stability. And he was very...
She's like, girl, he had a car.
He had a car and he had a job. And so he was stable. I think I wanted that stability back. But what happened was I still hadn't fully formulated who I was. I didn't have my own strong identity. And he was a guy that took control of everything. He did the shopping. He did the finances. He did everything. And I was just like, oh, this is kind of cool because I can just. But what happened was it became a prison. It was a prison. It was over controlling.
How soon after you started dating this guy when you started actually realizing, oh, shoot, this is a little too much? Or do you think when you were in it at the time, you weren't thinking that at the time? Did you ever get that like, it's a little too much? Or you were like, I like it?
I didn't notice it at first. When it changed was when the year before I became pregnant, I decided I wanted to go back into university because I wanted to learn and grow and I wanted to do. And as soon as that hit, the trouble started.
Ooh.
And I remember him saying to me, you're going to outgrow me, aren't you? And in my head, I'm thinking, I hope so. And I'm like, oh no, I just want to do this for fun, right? So that was a big thing. And what I took in school, I took a lot of stuff, but one of the classes really irritated him is women's studies, right? So suddenly I'm learning about how women are minimized in society. And I also had a gay female teacher. So she had that to add into it as well. So I was fascinated and I was in this whole other world of understanding, oh my gosh, all the pieces started falling in. That's why I'm feeling like that. That's why I'm feeling controlled. That's why I feel minimized in my marriage, because in my marriage, we didn't even have a joint bank account. I had my money, he had his. No. And he would go on holidays by himself if I couldn't pay my way. And I thought all this was normal.
Let me back you up. Okay, hold on. This is good. This is really good. I want to slow this down here. Okay. So you're dating the guy, and then you guys get married. And at first, like you said, he's doing it all, but he's also doing it all, but he's also like really withholding, right? Like he's withholding, like in the sense of he's doing it all, but he's not letting you see the bank account or not letting you do certain things. Okay. So when was it for you when you started, like, I really want to hear this. Like, were you already had some whispers before you married the guy, mama? Or were you just in a completely different mindset? Or did the whispers and the funkiness start happening, obviously, when you were married to him? Was there something that happened here that it really shifted for you? Like, something's up with this man.
I think if I had a different set of glasses early on, I would have noticed it. Other people would say he kind of manages everything, or we would be in conversation, he would take over. And I just kind of sat back and I didn't really insert myself for probably 4 years. And it wasn't until I went to college and I started learning and growing and being around other people, I think he became nervous. And then I got pregnant, right? Got pregnant. And then that changed everything. It just changed everything. And we had troubles about a year before I got pregnant, but we actually decided to have a child. So this was a planned pregnancy.
So you wanted to have a baby. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Wanted to have a baby. I wasn't really into it because I was all about, I still want to finish my college. Like, this is important to me because I'm halfway through. He's like, no, it's okay. It's okay. We're going to do this. Okay.
And what happened was, I want to ask this question because it just came up right now. Also, at this time, you were like, okay, I want to finish college, but I do want a baby. At this time, though, were you already feeling funky with the guy, or you still in your little denial? Yes. Okay.
No, I was feeling funky.
Thank you for saying that. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's why something was funky here. Okay.
Something was funky. He's like, no, this is what I want. I've always wanted a child. You can do whatever you want and you can continue your schooling. So I actually had my son in between semesters, right in December, and planned it, not. And I'm heading back out because I got 2 more years of my university degree because I really, really wanted it. And I'm pumping my milk and I'm putting it aside for him. And he's so angry at me that he said, I can't believe you're going back to school and leaving the child with me. What kind of a mother are you? And I remember thinking,
Mama,
that wasn't the deal. That wasn't the deal. And so I did make it through. I did graduate, but it was a year before I graduated when everything fell apart. And he told me that he was done and he left, and he said to me, and there wasn't any support whatsoever. And I'm still living off of a degree. I'm living off the student loan with our son, and there was nothing coming in. And I then took a job as a writer for the forestry industry to try to make money to pay the mortgage, to pay whatever. And I had a group from town dropping off food for me. And I remember looking at the basket and I went, oh my gosh, how did it get to this point? But I finished my degree and there was nothing coming in. And that was when I said, I need some support here. I can't make my way. And he decided to take me to a lawyer because he said, you're being unreasonable. And I had kind of done my own homework on my own. I went, okay, let's go. So we went to the lawyer, and halfway through, the lawyer looked at him and went, you haven't helped her for the last year and a half? He's like, no, why would I? And the lawyer back charged and gave me from him, this is what she deserves. So again, it was kind of like, unless I went out and did my own, understanding, doing my own work, I wouldn't have known. I didn't even know about spousal support. I figured he should do something, but I had the baby too. And I had the house and I had the car and I had heating bills and I was living off of a student loan, which of course
what was his, now looking back, what do you think it was? What was up with this guy? Was this guy, do you think it became just an obsession with you or a jealousy, or it wasn't?
No, I think it was, No, I think because he's still in our life, because we have a special needs son. So I still have to work with him. I just see him as a difficult business partner. That's how I see it now. That's how I have to work around it. But I think honestly, in his mind, he truly felt that you're on your own. You have to fend for yourself. And I don't want anything to do with it. Because you've made a decision that you're not happy in the marriage. And so, we were living out in the country. I had no family around. There was nobody around for me to throw it off of. Yeah, because I was like an hour out of town and I'm busy in my schooling. So I didn't have any resources or people to say, Karen, that's not right. I was just putting out fires, just trying to feed my kid and go to school. But you didn't want to be with the guy
anymore because this guy was, no. He obviously wasn't like, it sounds like he was very controlling. He wasn't allowing, like he wasn't supporting you. And there was something already, you already said earlier on that, you didn't trust yourself back then, but you already had that sense of something's off. This is not my guy. And so you're trying to figure out, okay, Charlene, how do I get out of this? But I'm not sure. So you're really battling with yourself. I think that position, Karen, is a position that so many of us women are in.
Yes. And so many women give up themselves or give away the house, give away whatever, because it's easier. But the other thing that kind of clued in, I'm sure you talked to your clients about this, is he does not like women. He hated his mother, had a terrible relationship with his mother. And the man I'm with now loves his mother. It's a sign. And yeah. And also when you're going out for dinner and you don't have a joint bank account when you're married, he made more money than me. So I always had to pay my part, but he wouldn't take me on vacation. So there's a big money thing. I think money and power and struggle were his things. And he does not like women in a place of power. And I think I was coming into my power in university. And then when I said, I need support here, that also put a chink in his chain that went, oh no. And he fought it, but he ended up losing. Right?
Okay. So then what happened? So now, so how was the baby at the time?
He was 2. Tristan was just a year and a half. He was a year and a half. So I did it on my own for about 18 months, 2 years. I did it on my own, ruined my health. Now I'm single, living with my babe. And he would come by every once in a while just for a day to pick him up and stuff. Very strange, very strange. And that was when I met my current husband, when I was doing a newspaper article and I was interviewing him.
No way. Hold on. I never knew how you met him. Well, you got to slow that down. We're going to hear that. No. Okay, so let's go. We're going to slow this down. So you're a single lady, you have a baby, and you're going, you're doing your thing, you're finishing school or whatever you're doing at that point. That's what you're doing, right? And then, you're writing. So obviously, this is why I know alignment is alignment, because I'm going to speak for you and then you're going to tell me if I'm wrong or right. Here we go. So obviously I would think at the time when you meet the guy, your current husband, you probably were like definitely not looking at the time.
I wrote a letter. I wrote out everything I wanted in a guy.
You did. Were you looking at the time, or were you like, I wrote everything I wanted?
No, I wasn't.
In a guy, and
I wasn't looking. I was just really sad and lonely, and I went out by the fireplace with a glass of wine, and I took pen to paper, and I wrote down everything I wanted in a mate. I wrote down his education level, how he looked, that he needed to have dogs. He came with 2 dogs. He needed to train. He needed to work out. I wanted him to have gray hair. Like, go figure. How detailed was this?
You wrote that down?
I did. I wrote it down. I wanted him to have been married, but to not have kids, because I didn't want to be a stepmom, but I wanted him to understand, what a marriage takes, and to love the outdoors. And 6 months later, I met Neil.
Get out of here.
And when we got married, I read that out from 20 years prior.
So you come from these experiences, bad relationship, it didn't work out with your husband. Now you're sitting there saying, okay, you know what, universe, hello, universe, come on, I'm a good lady. Are you going to send me something good? And if you're going to send me something, maybe this is what I want. And so you sit there and you're like, okay, you know what, if I'm going to sit there and I'm going to manifest this and I really going to ever put myself in a situation again that I'm going to fall in love or whatever that is, this is what I want. So you literally write all this down. And Mama Bear, 6 months later, boom, this man appears. What did you know? What was it like when he appeared?
Well, I mean, there was definitely the chemistry, right? Because, physically that kind of catches you first. So physically, he's very handsome, very fit. And there was a chemistry with him. And I knew for sure that it was him. So we got together after that. And I've been with him ever since. And in all honesty, I think his biggest gift to me, I mean, there's a lot of gifts. He's a wonderful father figure to my boy, for sure. The biggest gift is that he lets me be me and he gives me a ton of space, which I never had with any of my men. And he lets me fall on my face, right? Because I'm a hard learner and I pick myself up, and he never says, I told you so. So I get such grace and space. He holds space for me. Whatever I want to do, he never questions me on money. He never questions me on any business ventures. I've been allowed to go into business on my own, and it's been like, it's a little bit of a poop storm because it's tough being an entrepreneur, but I always have his backing. And there are times when we starved because of me. There are times when we couldn't make the bills. And all he said to me was, your job on this planet is to inspire women. Oof. So you keep going.
Oh, I got little chills on that one. Yeah, bring him on.
I know.
Oh, goodness. Okay. So then this beautiful man comes into your life and you are like open. You're open to this, right? You're open to him. And you get with him. And I know that your son was, 2 years old. So you're with him for a couple years? Were you guys married yet? Or are you living with him? Like, tell us the story, what ended up happening with you and your husband now, and then how things shifted because what happened with your son.
Yeah. So we started living together when Tristan was 2. He's now 28. We didn't get married for a while because he's 28 now. I know, because life kind of got really busy, and Tristan was diagnosed when he was 5 years old. We had no idea. Yeah, he was 5. And so he's diagnosed with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. So it's a muscle wasting disease, right? He's now in a wheelchair full-time. He needs full-time care. So we have a team of care workers. But over time, he just lost ability. So that was the hardest piece because ironically, my husband and I got together because he wanted to have children as well. And I'm like, I'm up for it, right? Because I was only 35 at the time when I had Tristan. I'm like, sure. So we had no idea about Tristan's diagnosis. So we actually went through 3 failed pregnancies. And we did. And we weren't able to. And then when we found out about Tristan, I halted it and went, I know it's coming down the pipe with this disease. And I can't have any other children because it's just going to be too much. And so he gave up his dream of having his own children. And he said years later, I think that was meant to happen. So I would fully embrace Tristan.
For Tristan, because he was meant to be with Tristan. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So you guys are not only, like, seriously, so you guys are in this marriage together. This man is like, I want to have a child too. I want to, I love your son, but I want to have another child. And then things totally took a different journey. Your son is diagnosed. Yeah. How was that for you with you and him in that marriage? Because prior to that part, I mean, were you guys pretty, had a pretty, you would say, pretty cool relationship? Things were okay?
Yeah. It was easy, right? I mean, not easy, but compared to what we had to endure. So when Tristan was diagnosed, in all honesty, Charlene, we lost ourselves for years. We really did. Yeah, it's very, very tough. And it was and the challenge is, for another whole segment is there's not support for people with degenerative diseases as much as people think. And so most of it comes on the family. So here I am trying to work and build my business, and my husband's working as well, but my child is requiring more and more time. And it was very hard on the marriage, I got to say, because people talk about date nights and stuff like that. I'm like, are you freaking kidding? We can't even get through a night.
Can you just give us a little bit? Because for for everyone that's listening, they're not familiar with that and exactly what actually that is. Can you give us just a little explanation what actually happens to someone that is diagnosed with that? Because like you said, so they can have, I want them to like really be able to understand when you say there was actually no time.
Right. Yeah. So what happens is, so he was born with it. There's no genetic, it's not hereditary. It is in some families, but not in ours. So I came from a pretty conservative family. I didn't know anybody with disabilities. And then my son was diagnosed. He started to walk funny. He was tripping a lot. And at 5, we took him to a specialist. The specialist did blood work, and Duchenne muscular dystrophy is usually in boys every 3,500 births. And it's just a slow wasting of the muscles in the body. So the first to go are the biggest, which are the leg muscles. So there's a lot of falling and tripping, and then they go into a wheelchair. And then eventually they lose their arm movement. They can't. He had to give up riding a bike. He had to give up walking. He had to give up driving, being able to have the dream of driving. Now he can't feed himself. He can't wash himself. He can't do that kind of stuff. So it was a long, slow process of learning to surrender over the years, right? It was very progressive, and he's 28 now, but he's needed full-time help since he was about 22. So that just takes all your resources, all your emotional strength. At night, we needed to turn him probably 7 to 8 times during the night. And I'm going through menopause at the same time, right? Yeah, and my husband's trying to work, and a lot of times I had to cancel work because I was just too tired to work. So it was just, we were putting out fires for years. We were reactive. There was nothing of us left. We were both like shells.
I can imagine.
Trying to manage something.
Sorry to interrupt you, but that is such another level, of things that are happening because, and especially, I'm a mother too. You're a mother, and for those that are listening that are mothers, just having to have space for our children and take care of our children and be there for our children and all the things, that alone is a lot. And then add it, honestly, like seriously, Karen, and then add it the disability part to where you're like, no, this is a whole other level. I can't even imagine how hard that must have been and how challenging that had to be in a relationship. And what I want to say something to you about is, regardless if it was as hard as it was, what I love is that you and your husband were both two people that actually deep down truly had true love for one another. Oh my God, it's going to make me to where that will break any marriage, with the stress. And I can imagine you just having that stress and having, just wanting the best for your son and not even how do you even deal with the relationship at the time?
Oh, you can't. Yeah. No, you can't.
You better have a strong man on your side.
It just got to a point where we were kind of living separate lives under the same roof, taking care of our son. And we just didn't know, there's no blueprint for this, right? So we didn't know any other way, but we were exhausted, and it got to a point where he wasn't coming home because we were always at each other, because you don't have any free time. There's no space. So you kind of feel like caged animals. And the challenge is, when you're both in it together, it's super, super hard. Whereas if there's something that's happening at work, you can come home and you're not both in it. And so I also know, when you look at the stats, the divorce rate in families with children with chronic conditions is sky high, but the autoimmune disease is 300% higher as well. And the way I see it is because we turn on ourselves. Women feel guilty. We feel ashamed. I don't feel guilt about his condition. I don't think I had anything to do with it. But you're guilty because suddenly you're in a little bubble where everybody else is in a normal world, and they're looking at you going, oh, that's awful. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, good thing we're not like the McCoys. And so we became the victim to it. And I went, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm everybody's worst nightmare, right? A parent having a child with something like this.
Well, that's
And I
what I'm
remember
going to
thinking,
say.
I've got to
No,
turn this
Karen,
around.
seriously, let's go there. What do you think they're like, well, I just don't want anything to happen to my child. And so now you're like, no. This is out of my hands. And I'm actually that mom that something happened. That's huge. That's huge, Karen. That's actually huge.
Yeah. And what I didn't realize was it was very, very isolating because people don't know what to say. And I get that. Some people might have thought it was contagious or whatever, but it was kind of like the seas parted because, they don't know what to say. And then they're saying, well, I don't know what to say because I don't want to remind you of it. It never leaves our head. All we want is for somebody to say, are you okay? And I just want to say, shit,
Yeah,
no.
you're like, no, I'm not okay. I'm not okay. Like, girl, I need help here. This is a lot. Right.
Yeah.
So you're going through this.
So we muddled our way through that for a few years, and emotionally we kind of went like that. And then he, started staying away later, and there was people at the office he was hanging with and stuff like that. And he was getting close to a woman who was listening to him because I wasn't that person who could. I was overwhelmed, and that kind of scared us. And that was when I actually went to see a lawyer. And I sat down with him and said, listen, this is what I need to know. All I need to know is if my husband leaves, can I look after me and my son? And we had to go through everything. And it was the first time ever, because what I needed to know was that if he decided to leave, that he could leave without me needing him to stay. Do you know what I mean? I didn't
Let's say that again.
I needed it clear.
So you're at a point. Yeah. You're at a point. You love this man. You adore this man. You want to be with this man. But you know what? You guys, you have the space for him, and you're realizing, oh shoot, I haven't really been here. So there's now a possibility that he might have to go because I'm not giving him what he needs. But if he's going to stay, I want him to stay because he wants to stay, not because he's feeling guilty or obligated. So you really wanted to position yourself in a way that you really knew what he really was feeling.
Yeah. So when I came back from the lawyer and we looked at everything, I mean, it would have meant selling the house and doing some uncomfortable stuff. But then I sat him down and I said to him, honestly, honey, listen, if you want to go, you're free to go. I can manage this. I've spoken to the lawyer. This is okay. And I needed to give him that freedom. And also I needed to be able to stand on my own 2 feet so that whatever happened, and it took about, 2 or 3 days, maybe. I can't even remember. It was a while ago. And everything turned around. And he said, no, this is what I want. And I felt so empowered and clean. But what I did do was I went into counseling for about 6 months on my own, because what I realized, I didn't want couples counseling. I knew the only thing I could change was me, and I needed to get this back again because I had lost myself. And I had a very gifted psychologist that helped me through, and I was able to shore myself up and recognize and see everything from, standing off in the distance. And I came back fully healed, and that helped to heal the marriage. And it was probably the best thing that we ever went through in our marriage because it created a new, stronger foundation for us. And I'm proud that we stuck it out.
I'm so proud of you guys stuck it out. And I love that you said that. I swear, I love that you said that you finally realized for you as a human being, as a woman, because often when we are in situations like that, we look towards the person, right? We're looking at the person, like what they're doing, all the things wrong. And ladies, sometimes you actually are in a relationship with a really great guy and things can just get off balance. Like things can happen. Like I always say, you know what? You're on a railroad track and sometimes you can get off the tracks for a moment, but it doesn't mean that he's the wrong guy. There's a difference between, right? It doesn't mean he's the wrong guy, because the reality is, I always say this, there's no perfect relationship, and that's okay. But there are people that love each other and willing enough to choose to continue on working it through and loving each other, through it all. And that's what it seems like you have with this man. There's no perfect anything, but it came down to, it's like, I actually do love you and you love me. And there's no other place that I'd rather be than here with you.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty amazing, Karen.
Yeah. And it's still that way. Yeah. It allowed me to appreciate him even more because, and you alluded to that, when you're in the middle of it, it's not perfect. And yeah, sure, I went into child energy a lot. I blamed him. We had fights because there's no space. And so, and I didn't have the skill set either. I've learned more through this long, healthy relationship that keeps getting nurtured bigger every year. But it's also because I chose to, because we got to a point where, you're kind of at the edge of the cliff and you either fly or you fall. And he was willing to do that with me because I did give him an out. I gave him the out a couple times. I said to him,
he'd be like, I can say, I haven't even talked to him. And I can tell you right now, if I talked to him, he'd be like, I don't know what she's talking about. I was never going. I can tell you right now. He's telling the story like I was late. He's like, I don't know what. I was here for the long haul. I'm in love with this woman.
Yeah. And I just said, you don't have to be here. I can do this. I know you didn't buy into this. You wanted, healthy family, your own kids. You didn't buy into it. He did. And every time, and I laugh at it because I would turn around and we joke about it now and turn around and go, you're still here,
baby. You're still here. Well, that's what I'm trying to tell you. That's the difference between having someone in your life that is really, really cares. It's really your person. Because look, like you can think about that. I mean, you tell me you weren't going to be able to do this with the other guys. That you didn't have, you know what I mean? That this was never, that would never work. It's so important who we end up choosing and who we end up really deciding to work it through. Because a lot of us women, we can be in relationships and we're trying to work something through, but there's no working it through. The guy, you know what I mean? It takes two people. So it seems like with you and your man that both of you decided, okay, this shit's hard. This is hard. But you know what? We're willing and choosing to work it through. And that to me is the love story. The love story is not, there's no, for me, Karen, there's no, and you know this, there's no like, they disappear, things perfect. No, what the love story is, what the truth is about having some amazing relationship is that when you get into a relationship with someone that you have, that alignment with, that's where you grow. That's where you get to work that through and learn yourself and choose what that is. And I love that you guys were able, I'm sorry that you have gone through so much, but I'm sure now, fast forward, I mean, you probably look back and you're just so grateful to have had each other and like, where would things be, in your life and with your son's life if he wasn't around?
For sure. And allowed me to mature into what a healthy marriage and healthy partnership is. For a lot of years, we didn't have that opportunity. But I learned about, because I didn't have it, effective communication. I learned to say what I needed, because when you're so darn tired and dragged out, you get reactive, you get angry. And we carried on that way for years because there just wasn't any space. And the fact now that we have care in the home and Tristan is older and mature, my business is doing well, so we have a little bit of breathing space. And we didn't have that for so long. So I can look back now and take a little bit more time and go, oh, I remember when I learned that. And I don't think I would have learned that if we had given up on the marriage, because I would have been starting over again.
Thank you for saying that. Exactly. Right? I truly believe that's where we learn ourselves the most when we are in the relationship, because we can learn about our past and we can learn about choices and things that we've made. And that's why I also believe in coaching and counseling and all of that. I always say women go inwards first, do that first. But where you're going to be able to practice it, where you're going to be able to see yourself is in a relationship, really. And
Yeah.
and the relationships that make it are the ones that continue on maturing, growing, and learning. That is not an overnight thing, people.
Oh
Ladies,
man, no.
there's amazing people out there, and you can have this relationship. But let me tell you, the work starts when you are actually in the relationship. This when the dust settles, because the dust settles for everyone. It's okay. That's just normal. And when the dust settles is where, oof, I got to look at myself a little differently now. Am I even communicating what's going on with me? So that's what you have learned through the years. You've been able to step into that, right? And I'm sure you made all the mistakes.
Yes. Oh, I made them all. I show my warts and all for sure. But I think too, the other skill set that's very valuable is what I've learned as a coach, which is what I teach my women is, in Buddhism, they call it the gap. I call it the pause breath. And that's where, I can see something happening. I can see my triggers or my archetypes come up, right? We talk personas and masks from, and I can see there's a path here. And now I can either go down that road and go down the rabbit hole, or I can go down that road and make a different outcome. And I didn't have that ability before. I didn't take the pause. And all it is, honestly, it's like 4 or 5 seconds, and it can feel like an eternity. But before you react, I want to learn more about responding instead of reacting.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for saying that. That's such a good thing to hear, everyone. Like, seriously, that has been my thing. It's like, Charlene, just take that moment to pause before. Whew. Man, that has saved me.
And everything shifts. Everything shifts, doesn't it? But it's a skill set that you can get really good at. And there are times when I just don't want to. Okay. I just want to be in child energy. It's okay. And he knows. But there's other times when it's just like, I can either go down the chaos path and go back into my old habits, the patterns and the conditioning, or I can make it conscious now and go, no, I'm choosing not, because the other way is so exhausting. And that's been the gift. But I can tell you that 2 or 3 second pause can feel like a lifetime, because you're both kind of sitting there going, and it's not really that way, but it feels that way.
I know. What is... I get you. What do you think, Mama, then? What do you think it is? Do you know that we actually, seriously, this is ridiculous. Do you know we've actually talked already for an hour?
And I know. I was just looking at that.
It doesn't matter. Because we're gonna wrap it up, but I don't want to wrap it up because there's so much more here. Because what I love about this conversation today, it's so relatable. It's so real. It's allowing people to see that, you know what? Love and love stories, they come in all different shapes and forms. There's just not one way, ladies. There's just not one way. And when you find yourself someone that you really love and you have empowerment with them and they love you, just realize you got to be able to understand that it's okay. You got to work things through. We learn as we grow. So fast forward now. So you went through all this. What is it like with you and him now? What is really life like with you and this man? And what do you love about him, Karen? What is the one thing you're like, oh my God, Charlene? I'm sure you have so many.
It's calm. It's nurturing. It's space. It's gratitude. It's respect, big time. And I know I can tell him anything, and it won't change his view of me. And I think, if there's one thing I could add is that when things get messy, don't make them wrong, because it's just mess. And and expect it. It's kind of like growth. You have to expect to be uncomfortable. And sometimes we get comfortable in our reactivity, but the uncomfortableness is when you can stop and just choose another way. But that then becomes comfortable as a new skill set too, right? So I've got that with him, and it's extremely valuable because it allows me to be a better mother, a better coach, a better daughter, because I am fully validated. Doesn't mean I don't piss him
No,
off
of course,
sometimes still
yeah.
though.
But you're validated. Like you guys now have figured
Yeah.
out a way with each other. And what do you think? Like,
Yeah.
I tell women all the time, I said, don't give up on love, because even though you've like I want you to speak on that before we have to end this. Unfortunately, I know you guys, it just went so fast. But don't give up on love, because it doesn't matter what you have been through before. Like, seriously, it
It
really
doesn't.
doesn't. Can you
It
speak on that,
truly
Mama? Can
doesn't.
you tell them, because you have gone through so much, and look at, in the end, you have actually been able to be with a man that you completely adore, completely love. And you look back and you're like, Charlene, thank you, Jesus, we stuck this through. Because look how your life is now. You're a very successful woman. You have a very
Yeah.
successful relationship. I know that, as we introduce you, what you do for a living, you're a very powerful woman. You help people, you help women, get empowered through their bodies, through their mind. And it's just so empowering. So can you speak while we end, and there's anything else you want to end this with? Let them know that there's hope. You know what I mean? Like, don't give up. And like, I want to hear your voice on that.
Well, honestly, I mean, we were at the lowest of low, and we were there for a long time. And all I remember thinking is, I'm not a quitter. Like, I just don't quit. And I would never quit. I always said, if anybody's going to go, it's going to be you that goes. I'm not going to go. I'm not, because this is a commitment. And so, I mean, is that right or wrong? I don't know. I think I would have been smart enough to be able to see this guy isn't for me. I never got that feeling. It was just so much stuff happening, and we would revert back into our stupid stuff. But absolutely, when it gets there and it starts to nourish itself, it's a whole other ball game. And if I can do it, you girls can do it.
Mama, yes.
I swear.
Yeah. If Miss Karen, we're going to tell you, Miss Karen's a badass. So if Miss Karen can soften herself down, she can find love, she can learn herself,
Yes.
she can slow down, she can communicate her words. You know what I mean? It's possible. It really is. Because Karen,
Yeah.
you and I have a lot of similarities, and I had that strong personality too. So I've been able to do the same thing. And I think it's amazing. And I just think you're amazing.
Thank you.
And I love you so much. And thank you, Mama. Thank you so much for being on today. Thank you for sharing your beautiful story. What a great story. So many women are going to fall in love with this story and fall in love with you, because it is so relatable.
I hope it helps.
It really helps. And that's what we're doing this for. It really helps. And it's so relatable. And you are just so precious. Thank you, Mama.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. Love you.
That's a wrap. Wow. What an incredible love story of a mother who had a life-changing challenge with her special needs son, and with love and perseverance and grit was able to work through her marriage with all the challenges that they faced, to creating a true love story. What an incredible story. If you're loving this podcast and these incredible conversations, please hit the subscribe button and leave a 5-star review. Don't miss an episode, because each week I'll be bringing on guests and experts who will share their knowledge about love, dating, and relationships, so you can apply it into your own life. I'll see you next week. And until then, cheers to great love.